March 10th, 2025. I am Ward 1 Councilor Bernie Schultz, and I'm hosting the meeting. Tonight I've invited City of Fitchburg Treasurer Michaela Horn and Police Chief Stephen Giannini to make presentations and then answer questions following their presentations. So let's get started. Michaela.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting me today. To introduce myself, I'm Michaela Horn. I am the Treasurer-Collector for the City of Fitchburg. I was previously the Assistant Treasurer-Collector, and I was promoted in June of 2024. To speak a little on the Treasurer's Office, it's made up of 3 separate divisions: payroll and benefits, treasury and collections, and parking. To go over some key points for each division of my department, I'll start with payroll and benefits. So we have 2 new employees, Chelsea Mason and Jerry Connolly. Chelsea was hired in May of 24, and Jerry was hired in July of 24. Under my authorization, Chelsea and Jerry have been performing extensive audits on all employee benefits, and we've cleared up a numerous amount of discrepancies, as well as developed a timely process to ensure enrollment and invoice accuracy. We've also rolled out an employee wellness letter that highlights different health and benefit topics, such as healthy recipes for employees, mental health tips, cancer prevention, and Blue Cross Blue Shield announcements for employees. We've also established relationships with business owners in the city to provide discounts for services to employees, where they can show their badge and they can receive discounts on different things. We're working on scheduling an employee benefits fair. We're also working on providing additional benefits for employees that are completely non-cost to the city, but an additional benefit that they can pay into, like adding a spouse and dependents on life insurance, looking into richer vision plans, adding ortho to the dental plan, allowing payroll deductions for pet insurance, and adding a legal plan through MetLife. And all of these are voluntary. They're not at any cost to the city. Some future goals for the Payroll and Benefits Office is using the city's archive software for payroll records to improve timeliness and accuracy of record keeping, looking into getting an online platform for benefit enrollment and maintenance, and sending out tax forms electronically. In the Treasury and Collections Division, we've worked on consolidating bank accounts to maximize interest income. We're currently receiving about 4% on all of our funds in all the different banks that we do bank with. We recently switched our lockbox provider to utilize a better banking platform, which will help us in timeliness of payments being posted, as well as solving any discrepancies with payments. And when I took over, being the previous assistant, I recognized that there was a need for collections to have more oversight. So I reconstructed the assistant treasurer collector position to have more oversight over the collections process. And going forward, we're going to be having more eyes on payment arrangements and making sure that people stay current with their taxes, as well as reaching out to delinquent taxpayers, and working with the tax title attorneys to address foreclosing on properties. There's going to be assistance with the complex tax situations that come to our window, and just general oversight of the treasury and collection side of the office. Future goals for the treasury and collection side would be update forms to be electronic and possibly fillable online, as well as start being more aggressive with collecting back taxes. And in the parking division, this year I established the Parking Advisory Committee. And in that, we are working on rolling out an app for paid parking, which we will be phasing out the coin-operated meters and phasing in a parking app. It helps save in cost labor as well as maintenance costs, and updating garage permitting process, where the applications to apply for the garage for monthly parking would become automated and the payment process would be online. And as well as we're working on updating the parking ordinances. And that's what I have. Any questions?
So implementing the app, what about those that don't have a smartphone?
So they actually, a couple of the different vendors we're looking at, they have the ability to call in as well as text in, which numbers will be provided on whatever signs are posted throughout the city.
When will it take place, Michaela? When do you anticipate it taking place, where we go away from the meters?
Hopefully within the next year or so. We recognize that changing from the meters isn't something everybody can utilize immediately. So we're looking at a longer phase out.
Okay.
And I'm just curious, maybe you have a number from last year. What's the revenue that's brought in by the parking meters annually?
I'm not entirely sure, so I can get back to you with that answer.
So, as I recall, the last couple of years, we've actually lost money on the parking function, and I'm wondering if you would consider auctioning off the garage. To me, this is something that is very expensive to maintain, and I feel we don't have the proper oversight. As the previous treasurer stated, they're unhoused people who live in there, they urinate in there, they defecate in there, human waste has to be removed, and I think that's a serious issue, and I would not want to park in that garage for that reason.
That isn't something we've mentioned or talked about, but it's definitely something I can bring to the Parking Advisory Committee. The chief happens to sit on that advisory as well, so it's something we can consider.
Who are the other members, Michaela?
So Councillor Van Hazinga also sits on the committee, as well as the mayor, Liz Murphy, and Nick Erickson.
Thank you.
Maybe it was just a one-off thing, though, Jackie.
I'm going by what the previous treasurer said.
We see a lot of that in the Boulder main garage, but we are working to get that under control.
Yeah, and I'm not sure when the former treasurer made those statements, but there have been some improvements made to that garage over the course of the last year and a half, including fencing to limit access to the types of areas that might be hard to see from Main Street that would encourage that type of behavior. So I think it's improved, and we have more walking patrols on Main Street than we have in the past, which also would help solve some of those problems.
We also did recently update the lighting in the Boulder garage in order to promote its feeling more safe and secure.
That's something, Chief, that's mentioned by a lot of constituents I talk to about. They'd love to have somebody walking the beat on Main Street all the time, and they'd feel safe
I would
going
love to
down
have
Main Street.
officers walking Main Street all the time, too.
Is there some
I can't
grants
commit
that-
to full-time, but CDBG this year, we did get more allotted to community policing than we have in the past, which is going to directly correlate to more foot patrols on Main Street as soon as the weather gets a little nicer.
Yeah, that's great news.
Yeah.
Great news. Councilor Bosch?
Why did you say that? Are you going to cut down employees?
I did not say that.
Or you did not say that?
No, that's something we're discussing.
You said overhead.
By no longer accepting coin meters and using the app, it would eliminate coin collection. It would eliminate the maintenance of maintaining the meter heads. So that right there would cut down the time it takes to maintain from an employee perspective.
Are we talking about just meters in the parking garages, or are we talking about meters throughout the city?
Meters throughout the city.
Throughout the city? What happens if somebody comes in from out of the city?
They can utilize the parking app. So there will be signs posted in the different zones, and you can sign on to the app or call in or text in whatever form that you would utilize.
Yeah, Bruce, this has been in the works for some time. We've wanted to do this for some time. It is a great idea. Yeah,
The upkeep on those meters has got to be brutal.
yeah.
They're just not, these are old meters.
We're also locked into a certain rate that you can charge with the meters, so there'll be more flexibility with what we can do for time frames and for like a money perspective.
Do you have an account with the Roosevelt Bank and Trust?
We do.
How many other banks?
Currently, we have, I want to say 4 or 5 more.
Is the city protected by FDIC up to $250,000 for each bank, or Or would the city, like individuals are protected up to $250,000? Is the city protected the same?
Yes, so we make sure that with every bank, we're monitoring their risk and making sure we're making good financial choices and collateralizing where we need to.
Banking trust is now going to be taken over by some other bank now. I saw a flyer at the bank that now it's going to be, I don't even remember the name, going to be taken over by some other bank that's out of town.
River Brothers, a holding company.
That's it.
Okay, any other questions for Michaela?
Looking at benefits and auditing them, and I was pleased to see this last year that we got rid of Code Red because it wasn't being used. I'm told that there's another program utilized by the fire department that each firefighter gets paid something like, I don't know, $60 a week for an app on their phone, and that is also not utilized, and I'm wondering if we can get rid of that to help with the budget.
That is actually not something that's monitored in the payroll department. That would have to be discussed with the fire department.
Any other questions before we turn it over to Chief Giannini? All right, Chief Giannini, your turn.
Thank you, Bernie. Thanks for having me here tonight. I'm looking at this evening as kind of a chance to introduce myself to some of the people that might not know me. So, as Councilor Schultz said, my name is Steve Giannini. I have been in policing in general for just under 29 years now, and with the Fitchburg Police Department since 2001. Born and raised in Leominster. I've lived in Fitchburg since I moved here in 1992 when I was attending Fitchburg State University. So I'm 5 weeks in or so. So far, so good. This recent incident involving the mother and father and the missing children, I just kind of wanted to use that as an example of how valuable collaboration and partnerships can be. So within the last year, we made one of our detectives a task force officer with the U.S. Marshals, and that paid huge dividends for us in this investigation over the last week. We obtained information to the location of where this family might be, and rather than having to fight red tape and figuring out who to call and taking valuable time out of this investigation, having one of our detectives as a marshal task force officer streamlined all of that. We made 1-2 phone calls, and the marshals in Texas were on it within an hour, I would say, which was just a great example of something that we didn't have a couple years ago, and now we have, and really paid dividends, like I said, immediately. So we are hiring police dispatchers right now, so if anyone here knows anyone, or if anyone listening and watching knows anyone, police dispatching is a great job. It can be looked at in many ways. I started my career as a dispatcher, and there's probably 15 to 20 police officers in Fitchburg now that started their careers as dispatchers. There's also people that become dispatchers and really look at it as a long-term career, and having a room with a good mix of both really is ideal. So please, anyone that knows people looking for a good job, good benefits, holistically, the ability to help people, it really is a good job, and we need all the help we can get in there. So I'd be happy to. I'm sorry, sir?
Dispatchers can do traffic details, is that correct?
They can. Once they're out of training and they're fully trained dispatchers, they can be part of our civilian traffic program.
Adds on to their base income?
It certainly can, yes. Yeah, it can be very lucrative if you want to work a lot. Yeah, that's a good program, too. If I can just touch on that before I go talk to you, Paul. The civilian traffic program is also a program that wasn't around a couple years ago. We have a lot of traffic details in this city, and the extra bodies that we can deploy out there, mostly in the summer months, but really year-round, has been a tremendous asset. So, yes, Councilor Boschman.
I
they going to be rotating shifts, or I get hired days, 7 to 3, 3 to 11, or 11 to 7?
When
It's going to be a rotating shift.
When a
One week
dispatcher-
Huh?
Go ahead.
One week I work days, second week I work second shift, third week I work nights. So, is it permanent shift, or is it a rotating shift? Like the
When
paper-
dispatchers are first hired, they go through every shift. They do at least 2 to 3 week cycle on every shift as part of their training because they need to know. Every shift has their own nuances, their own responsibilities, so they go through every shift. Once they're out of training, they bid a permanent shift, and those are rebid once a year.
What's the age bracket? The hiring age bracket, I should say.
18 and over, no top limit. I'd say most people in that room are mid-20s to mid-40s.
Is there any specific background, college degree, or?
No degree required, no. We take care of all the training once we hire you. The state mandates certain training, and then our training program is approximately 12 weeks long of on-the-job training in the room before you're considered able to work on your own. Yes?
So there was an incident where a police officer shot a mentally ill man, and we were told that he was brandishing a weapon. However, the body cameras have never been released, and there is a video that a civilian took that does not show a weapon. To me, this would be a perfect case to utilize a civilian review board. I'm wondering if you support such a board and will work to implement it.
The specific case you're talking about is under the jurisdiction of the Worcester County District Attorney's Office, so we would not be allowed to release anything without consultation from them. And I've had no official requests to release any of that body camera footage. I have seen the footage. I'll say to anyone who's listening, there's a weapon and our officer's life was in danger, and he reacted appropriately. Civilian review boards, again, if no one's ever approached me about one, I'm very proud of our internal affairs investigations in our department. I handled them the last several years, and now Captain Christopher Garcia oversees all internal affairs investigations. Last year, we had multiple complaints that were sustained. And I don't say that because I'm not proud of it, but it just I use it as an example that we certainly take them seriously and do our job. I know 2 years ago, in 2023, I believe more than half our IAs were sustained. So no one dislikes a bad cop more than a good cop. No one gets more upset when police officers do improper things, because it's not a profession like any other. If a plumber goes out and commits a crime, no one gets mad at every other plumber. If a police officer goes out and does something, everyone gets mad at every police officer they see. But like I said, I'm very proud of how serious we take internal affairs investigations. We investigate them fully, and if an officer does something wrong, we have absolutely no problem holding them accountable.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
how many officers do you have on the department, and how many beat cars do you have per shift?
We're budgeted for 81. We currently have 75, and we're trying to fill some of those openings right now.
And on each shift, how many beat cars do you have?
Minimum of 5 to 6, depending on the shift, and then a supervisor on top of that.
And on a typical shift, how many officers are there?
5 to 6 plus a supervisor, yes.
So speaking of cars, will you reverse the trend towards ever larger police vehicles that are bad for the budget and bad for the planet?
A lot of that is out of our hands. Me personally, my favorite police cruiser that I ever drove was the Crown Vic. I thought it was a great car. They stopped making them a long time ago. We're a little bit at the mercy of the car manufacturers. I don't know of any sedans right now that they're making in the police packages. I believe I heard the Chargers were recently discontinued, and I think they were one of the last ones. And we have a lot of equipment in these cars. We don't get big cars just because we feel like getting bigger vehicles. We have a lot of tactical equipment that I won't go into specifics here. We have life-saving first aid equipment. We have search and rescue equipment. There's certainly a limit. You could not put these cars in a Toyota Prius, for example. It just wouldn't make any sense. I'm sorry, sir?
technology in them.
There is a lot of technology in them.
Well, you need four-wheel drive in this city, especially in the wintertime. You need the SUVs.
That was the one thing I
Trucks,
could...
there is trucks. Otherwise, you're not going to get around in some car.
I agree with you. That was one of the drawbacks of the Crown Vic, like I mentioned. You had to put chains on them every time it snowed, and then the chains damaged the sides of the vehicle. So four-wheel drive is a game changer for sure. You're talking before my time.
Not before mine.
All right, Chief, did you want to present some more before, before we take more questions?
I'm happy taking questions.
Okay.
I have one more question, and I'm on. Chief, recently the Deputy Chief of Staff in the Mayor's office made a statement about possibly cutting staff at the police department. Any initial projections of how many officers would need to be laid off if that turns to be fruitful?
No, that would be a question for the mayor's office when the time comes. But I talk to the mayor nearly daily, and we all know it's a possibility. I think every department in the city knows it's a possibility, but I haven't been given anything official.
Health insurance keeps going up. Other things
I notice that every 2 weeks.
So with those rumors out there, do you have contingent plans? Like, are you thinking ahead?
Absolutely. We've been talking about it since I became chief. Even before I became chief, we were talking about it. So hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Sir? Yeah. Ms. Wetch.
So speaking of that, I recently read an article in the Sentinel from 2009 when we had faced budget difficulties, and it talked about how multiple people in the police department took demotions to help out with the budget. Would you be looking to make the department flatter and leaner if necessary?
I don't know if I agree with the way you worded that. I don't think anyone I know factually no one voluntarily took a demotion. But everything would be on the table, I'll tell you that.
Al, you had a question?
Crossing my fingers for a walk.
I do, but, well, you wouldn't put it on TV, but, like you look for, ask the public to look for this family, and they ended up in Texas. But I mean, you would put a plate on their plate on the car was advertised. Now, do you advertise on the city website or the police department website of any stolen cars that we should be looking for in Fitchburg? If they're stolen from Fitchburg?
Not specifically. The police log is posted to the website every Friday for the week prior, and any stolen cars would be in there, but you'd have to search through hundreds of records. So no, we don't specifically single out stolen cars and ask for the public's help typically, but it's an interesting idea that I'll consider. The more eyes, the better, right?
I'm not to do anything about it, just to call it in.
No, definitely, yeah, certainly not to approach them or do anything about it.
So at your confirmation hearing, Councillor Boschman had submitted a question because he was absent, and it was about working with the unhoused. And as I recall, your response was basically continue with the outreach team, continue with the status quo. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to support a Boston-style no camping ordinance, which says if you were offered a place in a shelter and you refuse to go there, you will be moved along and will not be allowed to camp out on public property.
I'm not specifically familiar with the Boston ordinance, so I'm not comfortable commenting on that.
Another question was, like, it was on TV about a couple of butcher shops that they order, a couple of guys come in and ordered like 8,000 pounds and 6,000 pounds of meat, for, and they gave them a line about it's for charity and like that. And they gave them a credit card. Now, the credit card was good, but it belonged to somebody else. So, well, not just for Fitchburg, but I mean, if you belong to the Chief of Police Association for Massachusetts and also for the United States, can't you try to get either the state legislature or Congress to make it a law that, and work with the credit card companies, that when you present a credit card, that your name has to be on the credit card, and then you have to show an ID, rather than just hand them a credit card, they run it, and it's good. Because if we leave here and you lose a credit card out of your wallet and you don't realize it until a week later or whatever, or a day later, and it's already been used, I mean, it's fine for you. You can call a credit card company, it wasn't mine, so you don't have to pay, and they don't have to pay. But like these butcher shops that were on TV, they're out, one was out $60,000.
Yeah, I think I saw that on the news myself. I remember the days when you used a credit card or debit card and you did get carded at stores. I don't know why that practice was discontinued.
Then that's why we should, the Chief of Police Association of Massachusetts, or the whole country, should work on forcing the government to make a law that says you have to show your ID, and your name has to be on that credit card. Something like that, because
Yeah, you're the first person I've ever heard come up with that idea. It's an interesting idea for sure that I can bring up at.
It just only makes sense that this, they can cheat other ways, but at least this is one step of one way they can't cheat people. Steal your credit card or steal your number, and their name doesn't show up on the on the credit card when they run it through for a service. They can run it through, see that it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to a certain person, even if it's a current one. They should deny them, doing it like that. Okay, that's it.
Yes, sir.
The former police chief of Leominster that had a problem where they had gotten his credit card number, and someone in Florida had ordered a very large screen TV, and he was having problems getting it handled, and he had tracked it down, knew who it was, knew when the TV was coming in for them, tried to tell him that, look, this isn't a joke. I'm the chief of police. It's my card. And he still couldn't get anything done.
Never heard that story.
Yeah, oh, that was a fun one that he had.
Yes.
So going back to your confirmation hearing, you talked about getting the department certified. And I saw recently a story about, I believe it was Salem, Massachusetts got certified, and they had to write close to 400 different policies. It seems that this will add a lot of costs and divert personnel from patrols to write policies, and I'm wondering how much time will this take, how will you fund it, and what's the total price tag?
We're actually extremely fortunate. We have our second accreditation grant now. We got an accreditation grant, I believe, in 2022 or 3, and then we got it re-upped 2 years later. So all cost is coming out of the grant. We have a civilian that we brought back, a retired captain, that comes back and does almost all the policy writing, per se. We discuss what we want the policy to look like, and he does the actual preparing of the policy before I give it final approval. And that is of no cost to the city, like I said, because it's a grant. We also have an accreditation consultant that does nothing but accreditation work for the city that's paid for by the same grant. So I think being certified and accredited pays dividends to the city. Maybe not financial, but it certainly tells the police department and the citizens of Fitchburg that we take it serious, that we want to be best practices is our goal in all aspects of policing, and accreditation holds you to that standard. So I think it's a definite plus, and I don't think it's costing the city any money at this time.
How about if the ICE agents make a request to you about certain people, Are you going to put a hold on these people with ICE, or are you going to, I mean, other than, are you going to cooperate with them, or you should, when they're looking for criminals, illegal aliens who are criminals, you know?
Sure. I mean, immigration is a federal offense, so it's not any local police department's job to enforce immigration. But ICE certainly is in the city of Fitchburg at times. They were in Fitchburg last week. When we arrest someone, everyone that we arrest gets fingerprinted. If it's someone that ICE has an interest in, they will contact us and they'll issue what's called a detainer. We then notify the courts, because the courts is actually determines who releases, if we release a prisoner, if we don't release a prisoner. And if court's open, we bring them directly to court. So we tell them that there's a federal detainer. They make a determination. We do not actively go out and work side by side with ICE. I can't even think of a time where they asked us to do that, because they know local police departments in general don't do that. If there's a matter of public safety or a matter of national safety, there would be a rare time that we may go out with ICE, or certainly they let us know when they're in the city of Fitchburg, and if they were in danger, if they got themselves into a situation where they needed help, then there's certainly a fellow law enforcement officer, and we would go assist them to keep the peace and to make sure they're safe. But still, even at that point, not to interfere with enforcing federal law.
Like you said, that you're budgeted for 81 people, and you only have 75 officers. So I would think, you know, you can only cooperate when it's necessary to cooperate with ICE to get the criminal illegal aliens out of here.
I mean, the chief of police in any jurisdiction should be nonpartisan. It shouldn't matter to the people that I am sworn to protect, whether I'm a Democrat, Republican, or anything else. Our manpower doesn't affect. We have no authority to enforce federal immigration law, so our manpower really is not a factor, or my personal beliefs.
Talked about increased community policing. As I recall, last year we had $40,000 for that from CDBG. This year, the police department proposed to cut it to $20,000, or we had $60,000, or I forget what we had last year, but you proposed to cut it down to $20,000. And fortunately, the mayor increased that back up to $40,000, but I think we could go even higher. Do you have any plans to further increase community policing, and if so, how will you pay for it?
Again, your numbers aren't really accurate. Our CDBG money traditionally, and probably for, I'll say decades, although it could be off for a year or two, has funded our drug investigations whenever they were, like our drug unit, our drug detectives. Liz Murphy recently discovered that they didn't want us to spend our money on that anymore. The federal government said that's not an applicable expense. So $45,000 last year was spent strictly on drug investigations, and we were told we can't do that anymore. So our actual amount of money towards community policing did not go down at all. It's actually increased to this year. So that will certainly help. And then just in general, we have an active community engagement unit, but the term community policing can be confusing to some people, I think. When I first came on the job, community policing was just done by a certain unit. We had a community policing unit, and those few people were the ones that were doing community policing. But community policing really is just a philosophy. Community policing means the police department and the people of Fitchburg get together and discuss the problems and try to solve those problems. And I think that's a department-wide philosophy. Our young officers are taught that in the academy. That's reiterated all through their training. And I think the department as a whole does an excellent job with community policing.
I think a lot of people think of community policing is you are out on foot, you are out on a bicycle, you are not up in this big SUV, you're driving around looking down on the people in the street.
Sure. And I can see that in just a recent example. We had recent issues at the intermodal, and now our officers instructed to go to the intermodal once every shift and get out of your cruiser and go in and make your presence known and talk to the business owners or the people there. So that sounds more like what you're talking about. And when we identify an area that requires that type of specialized service, we certainly provide it.
The city has 75 offices right now, and it's budgeted for 81. We have some offices in training to alleviate that 6 offices that are short.
We're in the hiring process right now.
You have on the corner of Snow and Main Street, the unit at CVS that every so often comes out and says, this is being recorded.
And I know what you're referring to, but that's not, we don't own that. That has nothing to do with the police department. But I do know what you're referring to.
I know they keep an eye.
There's a blue light on it, which makes everyone think that it's our equipment, but it's not.
Well, there's a lot of cars that have blue lights on them now that aren't supposed to either. But no, I'm at Rollstone Congregational Church, and we've got the signs out there that are no loitering, and one in the back and one by the Snow Street door that says private property. And so they're doing good checking it out. I came out of the building one day and an officer had pulled in. I said, no, that's fine. I'd rather be asked and checked. And
That building specifically, and the comment I'm about to make is based on personal knowledge I had within a year or two ago, but the church asked us not to enforce that, and they were perfectly fine with people sitting there, and it's their property, so we honor that request.
we had taken down all the rhododendrons that were big that they were making homes in.
Sure.
And we pulled those down and then pulled out the hedges that they were hiding stuff in too. So that's all been cleaned up to help you guys. And also the outside lights I've taken care of having the dusk to dawn lights outside.
Nice. Yeah, lighting is a great deterrent towards any criminal activity.
Any other questions? Traffic enforcement, Chief, how's it looking in the spring? I know we have these mobile units that we can place around the city to, show people how fast they're going and so on. I do get a lot of complaints from Haywood Street that it's like a cut through, and so they tend to.
We do. We get the same complaints probably from the same people for Haywood Street.
Yeah.
We did a study on that within the last month, and oh boy, I forget the exact number. I want to say 120 different times we had spent on Haywood Street just doing traffic. I believe that was in the last year or the last 6 months. I forget the exact number, but it was more than almost any other street in the city.
Yeah.
So we take those complaints seriously. When you live on that street and it's your backyard, you're always going to think that's where all the problems are.
Where all the problems are, yes.
But we can't be everywhere all at once, as you know. But we've certainly given that street a lot of attention in the past several months.
The other, dangerous intersection that, Chief Martineau had talked about a lot, where most of the accidents happen, are also in Ward 1. They're, New Stock Road and Water Street, and I guess that it includes Bemis Road. Because
yeah, like you said with Haywood Street in particular, it is a cutover.
Yeah.
And why do people cut over?
Yeah.
Because they want to save time and they're in a hurry.
Time,
so, yeah, I'm happy to say we do a lot of enforcement in there, and we'll continue to do so.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Boschman.
Counselor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Chief, I just want to say, in regards to what Bernie said, at one time, some of the residents from my ward were complaining at Curd Street, St. Joseph, and some other wards, so they literally put up the speed sign to Steve. And when they came back, 90% of the people that were speeding, there was probably nobody was speeding, but there was a couple of people speeding. And then Paul McNamara at that time was the police officer. He said, we're not going to send an officer up here to sit here all day to get one guy. It's not worth our while. He said the person that's really speeding is somebody in the neighborhood that's speeding. In regards to Water Street's a bad intersection. The light taking a left turn to go up to Bemis Road, up to Runestock Road, to head out to South Street. That should be changed And basically, the whole Bemis Road should be either looked at really good, because if you're coming up the hill and you're stuck in traffic and you're trying to take a left to head east to Leominster, that light's not long enough for the people on Renusnock Road to take a left. You only can get a couple cars, and then the people coming down Renusnock Road get the right of way. So you get a line, so they're trying to beat everybody, the ones going up the hill, to take the left-hand turn. And I told Liz Murphy they ought to change over the design of the road a little bit, push it over a little bit, so this way the people headed south, I think it's south, to Clegon or up to South Street, you have two lanes, one for taking a left turn and one to go straight or take a right turn. The lines are too far apart on the left.
I mean, that's such a major intersection. Nothing there should be changed without a thorough traffic engineering study, which...
We got an SS4A grant, a federal grant to, part of that federal grant is to look at solutions for that intersection at Bemis and Winooskunk and Water. So
good to know.
Nick Erickson, DPW, is kind of leading that, and Liz Murphy, Community Development.
It's amazing.
You said one interesting thing, if I can just touch on what the councilor just said.
Sure.
You'd be amazed. We put the traffic signs up in the traffic trailers, and quite honestly, more times than not, that's exactly what we see. The speeding it's almost not an issue. But like I said earlier, when you live there, if you see it once or twice a day, well, then it's happening all the time. But even if we go spend an hour a day there, the odds of us catching that one or two mathematically just isn't going to work. So those are a lot of valuable information in those speed trailers, and a lot of times people are just happy to get that data and to find out the facts. It makes them feel better just knowing the facts.
Well, I thought, Paul McNamara told me what he said. I tell you honestly, this happened to me in the summertime. I was coming down St. Joe's. Trooper. I looked at my speedometer. It was going 23 miles an hour. Some guy yelled at me, "You're going too fast." Well, the road's so bumpy, and my car's an old car, it makes all kinds of noise, so you really think you're going fast. But I was going exactly, I'm not lying, 23 miles an hour.
I believe you.
And I said, I couldn't believe it. And I said, Paul, you're absolutely right. People think you're going faster than what you actually are going.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I was just going to comment, Chief, that designs at intersections, they make a huge difference. We had the police department helped with a intersection at Laurel, Charles, and Walton Street.
Sure.
And
right.
Commissioner Erickson he put up temporary barriers.
Yep.
That makes a big difference.
It has, that particular intersection.
And hopefully that he's going to try to make that a permanent barrier. But the police designed that, and so what I saw for many years was that people were going through that stop sign going down Laurel Street all the time. Yep. But now they see the car that's at the stop sign there. They can see, and they see that there's a car there, and they don't go through. They stop now at the stop sign.
Yep, I agree with you.
Yeah.
That is a much better design right now. I hope it becomes permanent also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sir.
So the dirt bikes and ATVs are out on the road.
I haven't seen any yet, but,
Oh,
I'm sure they're coming.
I've heard them down at Viola's. And you
Right. Well, again, in the last year, and I'll credit one of our captains, Christopher Garcia, took a policy from, I think he combined Boston with another city, but to crack down on recreational vehicles in particular. And it's an excellent policy that gives us more power and more authority to confiscate vehicles and to put an end to that. So if that does start up again when the weather gets nicer, I think we're better equipped this year than we were last year.
Any other questions for Chief Giannini or for Treasurer Horn before we conclude our meeting tonight?
I do. Chief?
Yes.
You took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, like a lot of us have. Do you feel that the freedoms that residents and Americans have here in the city have been limited by the police department over the years?
How so? Can you be more specific? Or?
A lot of people in elected they manifest things outwardly, talking about past situations. What that does is it manifests into reality of the future. So when your concern is vehicles are going to get confiscated or there's going to be an abundant amount of people doing things, what happened to home of the brave, land of the free? My concern and my observation over 30 years of my career has been that the rights of citizens, their freedoms, become less and less and less. So as we're talking about...
I mean, in particular case with the recreational vehicles that we were just talking about, I think it's a very small number of people causing a very dangerous and hazardous situation to the overwhelming majority of people. And I think regulations, that's the whole purpose of laws and regulations, is to keep the majority safe.
Is if that had happened in the past, why are we projecting that situation from the past into our present and future? You're literally drafting, at this point in human history, problems for yourself and the department. That's just been my observation. And a lot of people don't understand metaphysical science, I get it, but it's an evolving industry. And I have concerns that, you know, over decades, and like you, I've lived in Leominster most of my life, but my family's from Fitchburg, et cetera, et cetera. In the Twin Cities, over 25 years being in public safety myself, I have seen an increase in limiting freedoms for Americans. And to be quite honest, as I'm out there campaigning, and I have my personal experience with the police department, there's not a lot of good things being said about the police department right now from citizens, because people are feeling they're watching the propaganda on TV and then they go outside or they turn on FATV and then they're hearing these manifestations, so nobody wants to go do anything. So my concern is, as the new chief of police, why are we projecting worst case scenarios when spring's here? You know, that would be my...
Differently than I just look at it as we're giving our officers tools to keep the people of Fitchburg safe, and they have more tools this year than they did last year. I don't look at that as a bad thing.
But we're not talking about tools. We're talking about people who have recreational vehicles that want to enjoy themselves.
And if they do it properly, they'll have absolutely no issues with the Fitchburg Police Department.
Thank you, Joshua. I think we're about ready to go. I just want to tell you about the next meeting next month. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting. The next City Council community meeting will take place on Monday, April 14th, 2025 at 6:30 right here in the Legislative Building. DPW Commissioner Nick Erickson and Human Rights Commission Assistant Chair David Roth will make presentations and then answer any questions that you might have. So I thank you all for coming and your questions, and thank you, Chief Giannini. And
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So, good night, everyone.